So fun to see familiar people and so many wonderful new faces. Hi, everyone. I am Diana Chapman, one of the co-founders here at the Conscious Leadership Group, here with my best buddy, Jim Dethmer.
Hi, everybody.
We just want to welcome you all here for our webinar today on how to lead through COVID. And we have a couple of logistics before we get started. A couple of how we want to run this event today, a couple of things. One, just ask that you turn off all of your notifications, both on your computer and on the devices around you, especially if you would like to be able to ask questions. We hope not to get disturbed by those. If you could, we would really love to have you on video so we can see each other. We understand if some of you don't have good internet connection, so it makes it harder to do that, but if you have video. Want to have you take care of yourselves physically, so if you need to stand up and move around, fine with us. Also, we took in all your questions, so we have a plan for answering many of the common questions, and we'll be asking more questions today of you. And we'd like you to ask your questions in the chat area, and we'll be pulling questions that we think are most relevant to the group along the way. Our ask is, so we can keep track of those questions, our ask is to try to keep the chat to questions only, rather than hi from wherever. That will just help our moderators be able to weed through and just get to the core questions that you're asking. So that's a request. And then what will happen is, if you want to ask a question, you have two options. One is, if you'd like to ask it yourself, you can say voice. I'd like to use my voice to ask the question. If you just want to ask the question, but you don't want to come on and interact with Jim and I, you can put no voice, and then we can just respond to the question without having to pull you in and have a conversation with you. So that's your choice. So after your question, voice if you want to ask it yourself, no voice if you'd just like us to respond. This will be recorded, this session, and this will be shared more broadly. So we just want to let you know that if your questions and your comments will be posted more publicly. And want to introduce Lainey and Erica, who are Lainey is our head of operations, and Erica, our partner in crime as well. And they're here to help support the event. So thank you guys for running the back end here and handling questions. And then let's see, I think we plan to go for 90 minutes. And that's all I think I've got on the logistics side.
Okay. Yeah, so welcome everybody. Let's do this. Let's all just arrive here. So just, you can do this with your eyes open or eyes closed. It really doesn't matter, but let yourself really feel yourself seated in your chair or on your couch. If you're standing, feel your feet on the ground. And what we mean by really let yourself get here, like feel your seat on the seat of your chair. Feel where the two contact each other. So you're bringing your attention to your body and its sensations. And then feel as well whatever your feet are touching. If they're touching the floor, if you have them cross-legged in your lap. So again, you're bringing your attention to your body. In these times, our minds are so active and they go so fast. So much for them to think about, even perseverate on. We're bringing our attention to the body. And then from there, bring your attention to your breath. Don't worry about changing your breath. Just feel the breath in your body. wherever you feel it. So you're feeling your body and you're feeling your breath in your body. And the great thing about your body and your breath is they're always here now. You don't breathe in the future or breathe in the past. You're breathing this inhale, this exhale. Such a wonderful practice of being in this now experience. One of our convictions is that conscious leaders develop the ability to be in the now with what is actually happening now. And we say it's a developable skill. You'll discover that most of the time your mind and the mind of the people you're leading, and even the collective mind in the world, is not being with what's here now. It's out in the future, anticipating, planning, fantasizing. Or it's in the past, remembering. And the gift of this now moment gets missed. So this is not a warm-up exercise. This is what it means to be a conscious leader. Being here now with what is. And as best you can, let go of resisting what is. Just for this second, just allow what is to be. All of our stress comes from resisting, fighting with what is. So could you just let it be? Okay. Keep your eyes closed if you want, if that's fun for you, or open them, whatever's friendly. So welcome, everybody. Our desire, at the Conscious Leadership Group, the purpose that we say is we want to support the expansion of conscious leadership in the world. So the active ingredient is support. So we want to support you. We want to come alongside you and offer what we have to offer to you in a way that could be useful to you. And so in the midst of the world being the way the world is, we wanted to just have a gathering. We're having a bunch of gatherings like this, where we just, again, want to see you, witness you, be with you, hear from you. So our intention is to support you. Now, some of you have years of experience with us. You've been coached by us, you've been in events with us or forums with us. And some of you, I imagine, are quite new to us and what we're doing. So first of all, welcome to all of you who are new to this. And to all of the people who've been around, welcome back. I want to give a little bit of a frame of how we can offer support and distinguish it a little bit from other forms of support that are out there. So when we asked you for questions you'd like to explore during this time, first of all, thank you so much. The questions were wonderful. And many of the questions were exactly the kind of question we want to support you in discovering what's possible. And then a lot of the questions were not questions that we know anything about or have any expertise in whatsoever. So they were kind of like more typical leadership questions. They could be as simple as, what do we do with the top line shrinking and our costs are staying the same? What do we do with that? Well, that's a really cool question. It's just that you'd be hard pressed to find two people who know less about that than me and Diana. Even some of the questions were, how do we, since we're all going to be on Zoom, how do we create meaningful connections on Zoom? Well, we might have some ideas about that because we're toddling with this just like all the rest of you, but we don't really know anything about that either. I don't even know. I was talking to the gang before we started. I don't even know how to tell you how to raise your hand on Zoom, let alone how to make it more intimate. So I say that your questions are really, really wonderful. You're just asking the wrong people. Now, a whole other set of your questions were the kind of questions we believe we can support you with. So the first thing, and we want to give you a couple of big ideas, and then we're going to just start playing with each other, me and Diana, and with you. If you're brand new to us, we just want to introduce you to a couple of concepts. The first concept is the distinction between content and context. So we say all the time that we are context coaches, and I'll tell you what that means in just a minute. We are not content experts. So we're context coaches, not content experts. So those of you who lead organizations, you often bring in content experts, consultants like Bain or McKinsey or Boston Consulting Group or whatever, who are experts in marketing or supply chain management. They are experts in the content that is most interesting to you. That's not what we do. We are context coaches. So what we're expert at, and this will make sense to some of you and not to others, is we're expert at helping you discover your context and shift it if you're willing to. So if you work with us, even today, we're going to always point you towards context. You show up with great content questions. We're going to say those are interesting, very likely useful for someone to talk to you about that, but that's not us. We're going to invite you back over here. Now, let me illustrate in very practical terms what I mean by this, and I'm going to jump right into the deep end of the, it's not even the deep end of the pool. I'm going to jump into the deep end of the ocean. COVID-19 is content. I'm going to say it again. COVID-19 is content. Like all content, it answers questions like who, who's going to get it, who's had it, who's dealing with it, who's coming up with the vaccine, who, lots of who questions. What is it? What do we do about it? What do we do with our children about it? Who, what, where? Come on. Which of you haven't looked at the Hopkins maps? Where is it? Where is it? Who, what, where, when? When are we going to get out of physical separation? When are we going to return to life as normal? Who, what, where, when, why? Why has this come to us? What is this about? Is there a deeper meaning here? Why has this happened to me? Why did this happen to my beloved mother? Why did it get into her nursing home? Who, what, where, when, why, how? How do we deal with it? How do we, who, what, where, when, why, how? All content questions about the content of COVID-19. Your life, my life, Diana's life is filled with content. The content of how do I homeschool my child? How do I deal with my head count in my firm because we are losing money? How do we manage our suppliers? How do I live in isolation with somebody I don't like? I've been able to avoid them for years by working. Now I'm imprisoned with my significant other. What do I do? Content, content, content. we don't address this. Context. From where, funny language, from where am I being with my content? This is what we support you around. So, content, COVID-19, who, what, where, when, why, how. Context, how am I in this moment being with COVID-19? And here's real simple. We try to do this so simply. I'm either being with it from fear or trust. I'm either being with the content from to me, I'm at the effect of it, it's happening to me, or I'm being with it from by me. I'm taking responsibility for being the creator of my experience with the content of COVID-19. I'm either being with it, the simple language, if you've been around us at all, I'm either being with the content of my life from above the line or below the line. Our work is all over here, helping leaders become more and more self-aware of how they're being with the content of their life. Because here's our experience, and this is one of our big hypotheses for you to consider. We think that context is equally, if not even more important than content. The content of your life will change constantly. How you're being with it will determine things like how much stress you're experiencing, how much peace you have, how much connection, vitality, aliveness is determined by your context, not by the content. There are people who are being with the content of COVID-19 from fear, from below the line, like millions of us. And to that we say, that makes sense. It makes sense that we're spending time in fear. This pandemic is a threat to what we hold dear. Like literally, it's a threat to our survival or the survival of people we love. It is a threat to our wanting to be in control. Many of your questions that you offered to us were around the subject of certainty. Isn't that great? Because we're all in relationship with this content. We are all at various times and in various ways in these places of deep uncertainty. And being in uncertain places, we experience as a threat to our desire to be in control. So COVID-19, the content of all of our collective lives to one degree or another, we are many of us being with it from fear or from threat, as is normal. We're not saying that's bad or wrong. In fact, the first thing we want to say to you as leaders, which I'll get to in just a second, your people in your team, in your organization are scared. Now, they might not act scared. They might act angry, or they might act, they might be in total denial about their fear. They might be compulsively numbing their fear through addictive behaviors or picking fights with other people on the team. But because they're human and they are being confronted with their humanity, their finitude, their frailty, their lack of control, down deep, they're scared. So when we talk about how to lead in the midst of COVID, the first thing to do is to understand that people in your world, your children, your significant other, your siblings, your parents, your neighbors, your people at work are scared. So the first thing we're going to say is validate the fear. Validate the fear. And that begins with validate your own fear. It might be big, it might be little. Validate your own sense of a lack of knowing. You just don't know. There's so much you don't know in the running of your business, in the working with your team, in the management of the things you're managing in your life. There's so much you and I don't know. Welcome not knowing. And from welcoming your own fear and your own not knowing, context leaders say to the people in their world, whether it's professional or personal, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not know. And then conscious leaders go a step further and they say, I'm scared at times too. And there are lots of things going on that I don't know. I am filled with uncertainty. And I want to tell you that little step one, welcome your own fear and your own uncertainty. Welcome other people's fear and uncertainty, and reveal yours to them to validate theirs. That's contrary to a lot of leadership philosophy.
Can I give an example, Jim?
Yeah.
So I was coaching somebody yesterday, and I had given her this advice to support her team in outing their fears. And so she had a sentence stem. She said, I want you to all answer the sentence, I'm scared that, and then fill in the blank. And so they started their team meeting with everybody going around multiple times talking about what they're afraid about. And she got tons of, including herself, saying, I'm scared that. She started. And people went around and they spent about 10 or 15 minutes revealing all these fears. And she said she got so much positive feedback from the team saying, I feel so much better. I feel closer to you and all of you because I hear you all are going through some of the same things I'm going through. And I just, my nervous system has relaxed by just outing these things. So that's one practice you might lead, is asking people to go around and just answer the sentence stem. I'm scared that.
Like right now, if I tune in, there are moments that I'm scared that it might be months before I ever get to touch. Here comes some sad. I'm scared and I'm sad. Before I ever get to touch 5 of my 6 children and their significant others and half of my grandchildren. It might be months till I get to hold my little grandchildren's head in my hands and kiss them.
Yeah, and so now you're talking about also the importance of not just fear, but other emotions, and grief is a big one up right now. So another round could be, I'm sad that. What are you sad about? Because there's so much we're letting go of. You know, the intelligence of sadness is, I'm needing to let go of a vision I had for the way things were going to be so I can be with the way it is now. So Jim thinking, I've had a vision of holding my grandchildren and a vision of holding my children, and that vision, I have to let it die so I can be with what's here now of not holding. And we see so many people get stuck because they're not feeling the feelings, and they get tired holding those feelings down. It can be exhausting to try to manage and control these feelings.
So the first thing that we're offering to you is, conscious leaders, pay attention to content. Some of you are content experts in the running of your business. That's great. But they pay attention to context. Am I in trust or fear? Am I above the line or below the line? And they understand that it's okay to tell the truth about where they're at. It's okay to just say, hey, gang, right now I'm in a state of threat. Right now I'm below the line and I'm reactive. I'm not present. Right now we say that when you're below the line, you're in drama. And when you're above the line, you're in presence. It's okay to say to your team, hey, I'm below the line and I'm in drama. When you do that, you are evidencing the following traits of a conscious leader. First, you're self-aware. Second, you're willing to be vulnerable and validate your own authentic experience. And third, you're willing to create an environment where other people's authentic experience is welcome. So again, I said there's a whole philosophy of leadership that says leaders should never show their fear, right? Because if you show your fear, people are really going to get scared. That's not our view. In fact, our view is that when leaders aren't authentic about their fear, people feel it in them anyway, and they lose trust in the leader because the leader isn't being authentic. It actually increases the fear of the followers because they look at the leader and they go, like in COVID-19, if you say, I don't have any fear at all, and maybe some of you don't, maybe you're truly enlightened, free beings and fear never comes through you, great, but that's not most of us here. So they look at their leader and they go, there's stuff happening that is a genuine threat to our business, to our lives. And the leader puts on some, it's all going to be okay. There's no problem here. We've got this handled. Any version of that. People lose trust because they go, the leader doesn't see reality. And therefore, it's scary to be in community with the leader because they don't see reality. Second, I don't trust the leader because they don't see me and the reality that I'm experiencing, which is I'm scared and I'm uncertain. So conscious leaders have the awareness and the authenticity and the vulnerability to say what's true. This is emotional intelligence. It's open, vulnerable, candid authenticity. Now, I want to say, they don't stay stuck in their fear. They don't say to their people, well, actually, these are tremendously turbulent times and we should all be panic-stricken all the time and be immobilized in the grip of our fear, always freezing, fainting, or fighting the world. No. They welcome what is in themselves. They invite others to be authentic about what's there for them, and then they move through the fear, or more accurately, they let the fear move through them. You're familiar with our work. Our experience is that emotions move through the body in 90 seconds or less if you don't resist them. They arise if you breathe with them, they flow through, they release. The body is made to release emotion. It just does it naturally. Until we start suppressing and repressing it, then it stays stuck. I have these little grandchildren all under the age of 9 now, and the little ones especially, the few-month-old one, you don't have to teach him to release his emotions. His body just releases them. But he's just like all of us. He'll grow up and he'll have parents and caregivers who say to him, it's not okay to feel a feeling. Then he'll repress them. Then they'll get stuck. So conscious leaders are aware of their emotional states and their uncertainties. They welcome that. They welcome it in others. And then they support people to be so emotionally skillful that they can feel feelings all the way through and then come back into presence. And in presence, They are open to what is meant to be learned in the midst of the uncertainty. So, conscious leaders, aware, feel, welcome, flow, come into presence from a state of curiosity and get interested in what can we learn in the midst of the uncertainty, in the midst of all the not knowing, what is here for us. Conscious leaders, and I'm going to graduate school, but many of you are playing in this game. Conscious leaders realize that actually uncertainty isn't a new thing that showed up with COVID-19. Uncertainty is the natural state of all humans. Now we fight against it, so we try to lock down whatever we can be certain about. But you'll discover you can't stay certain for very long before you're back in the world of the uncertain. Conscious leaders make uncertainty a friendly terrain that they like to live, dance, move, and play in a dynamic dance with life. And they teach others how to do that as well. Diane, anything you want to add to that piece?
No, I think the number one question we got from people was, how do you help others who are feeling stress? I'm leading, and a lot of my team is feeling a lot of stress, and how do I help and support them? And so, what you're pointing to is we want to first address context. And how do we help people first make contact with their emotional states is one of the key things that we want to invite you to get some intelligence around here of leading your team to feel their feelings, which means you have to be willing to feel yours. And I think it'd be important to talk a little bit more about how to not just say I'm scared, but Jim was talking about letting the body move that energy through. And so that's something that we see is missing for a lot of people right now, is not making contact with the sensations in the body. So when someone says, I feel scared, oftentimes people feel those sensations of fear in the belly area. So being able to then say, great, where do you feel the fear in the body? Now, a lot of people have never even looked to even, what do you mean, feel that in my body? That fear lives somewhere as sensations in the body. Can you be with that? Can you breathe into, sometimes I feel that feels like a snow cone machine running around in my belly. Feel scared. Can you be with that? Breathe in and through those sensations, maybe even make some sound and movement to help yourself match what's happening in the body. If people don't have a skill set to be able to be with that sensation and move it through, it will be difficult to then be able to be present in a place of curiosity to know how to navigate these times. So there are some videos on our website under the resources page, under feelings, on how to feel a feeling all the way through. If you haven't seen that, we'd recommend going to watch that and maybe have your team watch that so people get some emotional intelligence around how to flow feelings.
It looks like there are some questions coming up around feelings, Diana. Do we want to have Erica bring those forward since we're here?
Sure.
Erica, come join us and tell us what's going on in the world of questions.
Let's see, I saw.
Here she is. Hi.
Yes. Hi. We have a question from Kevin Durfee, and I'm going to unmute him so he can ask the question himself.
Hi, Jim and Diane. Thank you for doing this. So our team did something similar where we shared our emotions and our sadness and fears. And I at least came out of it feeling a bit more bummed out and stressed. So how do we balance that making sure people feel that they can be their authentic selves, but not, poison the well, if you will, which I know someone else mentioned.
Yeah, it's such a good. Kevin, if you had to imagine why you came out feeling more bummed out and distressed, why do you imagine you came out feeling that way?
I think other people's fears and sadness made me go, oh yeah, I didn't think about that one. And then I had that fear and sadness.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So when you do this in a group, it's easy to take your catastrophe level 10x.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, good. So a couple thoughts here. One, we're not only advocating articulating our fear. We're pointing at a second step, was to actually feel the fear and move it through the body. So let us be a little more specific. Like when fear is here, Diana said, usually, often it's in the belly, sometimes it's in the chest. It can be all over the body. Whenever fear shows up, it shows up with a thought. So there's a thought, and then there's a fear, right? It's always the case. The thought, I might not hold my children or grandchildren for months. The feeling, fear and sadness. Thought, feeling. Cognitive, emotive. Follow me? So when you sit in a circle and you say, I'm scared that, you're going to hear the thoughts. I'm scared that we're going to go bankrupt. I'm scared that I'm going to lose my job. I'm scared that, so I'm getting the thought and it's hooked to a feeling. Yeah. But if we don't go a step further, what'll remain in the room are all the thoughts. This is what happened to you. Oh, I hadn't even thought about being afraid of that. Oh my God, I should be afraid of that too. Okay, good. Because the mind starts perseverating on the thoughts. And we never get into our body. So the way to do this, and actually I'd like to guide everybody who's here to do this, just because you'll get it very, very simply. Everybody, including you, Kevin, think a thought, go ahead and let a thought come into your mind, that when that thought comes into your mind, you have some anxiety, you have some nervousness, you have some stress show up with it. Everybody go ahead and think a thought. You're going to bring the thought up. Whatever it is, see the pictures and the images and the sounds, the thought will come with all that. You doing this, Kevin? I'm going to coach you. Good, so you got a thought. You don't even have to tell us what the thought is. So that thought is bringing up some anxiety, yes? Good, so Kevin, where is the anxiety in your body? Where do you feel it in the body?
My chest and stomach.
Okay, beautiful. So would you do this for me? Would you bring your attention away from the thought and bring it onto your chest and stomach? All I'm asking you to do is pay attention to your chest and stomach and the sensations that are there. Okay, so you're tuning into your body. And just for fun, what are the sensations in your chest and stomach right now? Is it like tight or pinching or gurgling, or what are the sensations doing?
Tightness.
Tightness. So can you just watch the tightness for a moment? You're not trying to get rid of the tightness, Kevin. Just let the chest and stomach be as tight as they are. So you're actually kind of giving a little space for the tightness. Oh, tightness is here. So you're just letting tightness be there, not trying to get rid of it, just noticing it. And then as you bring your attention to the body and the tightness, and you just let it be there, just tell me what's happening. Is it getting tighter? Is it getting looser? Is it changing shape? Is it going someplace else? Just tell us what the tightness is doing.
I guess it's getting looser.
So there's a little bit of loosening occurring. Okay, great. So just stay with your attention on the tightness for a minute longer. And I'm asking you to do something really funny. Kind of breathe and send the breath toward the tightness. It's like, yeah, you're sending the breath toward the tightness. Again, you're not trying to get rid of it. You're just giving the tightness a little bit of oxygen, a little breath. Keeping
I
your
like to think of it like I'm welcoming the tightness with my breath, like, hello, welcome.
And everybody else, you're doing the same thing. You might have a different sensation than Kevin, but you have a sensation and you're just allowing it, just welcoming it. And you're noticing, is it getting bigger, smaller, darker, heavier, denser, more spacious? And you're giving it a little bit of breath. So Kevin, if we come back to you, just tell us again, we're just wanting to ride the ride with you. What's happening to the sensations?
They're breaking apart. They're moving, but they're breaking apart.
Okay, beautiful. So that's, first of all, this is a brilliant observation on your part. All feelings are moving.
Mhm.
They're literally vibrating. And as you tune in, you feel them moving and you can look and it looks like they're starting to break apart a little bit. And again, you're not getting attached to getting rid of them. You're just welcoming them and noticing them. So this is the practice of coming out of the thinking into the body, welcoming the body to have its experience. All stress, all tension, all fear, all trauma is stored in the body. We don't get rid of it by thinking our way through it. We actually let it have its life by welcoming it and breathing with it. And just like it's happening with you, Kevin, and maybe others, it's going to start to just loosen. Now, for some of you, I want to be clear here, as you do that, it's getting bigger. That's okay. That's okay. What that is probably a sign of is you've been shoving it down and you finally gave it a chance to come up and it's coming up. So if we were working with you, we teach you how to titrate letting it come up. Let it come up, presence, let it come up. But all this is doing is moving it through. Now, if we completed with you, Kevin, if we took more time, eventually there's going to be more space. Now what we've done is we've dealt with the body. We've let it go first. Then we would come back and deal with the thought. And we do that through a form of what we call inquiry, which is a whole process that starts to loosen the grip of the thought. Doesn't it feel like when you're in fear, like it's got you? So what we do is we talk about the cognitive, emotive, thinking, feeling loop. So you start with a thought, like you sat with your team and you said, let's all share what we're scared of. And all of a sudden your mind just started going. And at the end of it, you go, that sucked. I'm worse off than I was when I started. So that makes perfect sense. But if in the group or just by yourself, depending on the level of willingness of your group, you say, let's just take one of those and get in our body. Breathe, move. Literally, if you were home alone, I might tell you to put on a little music. If just you and me in a safe environment, put on a little music and I'd tell you to dance to match the feeling. Move the body. A lot of times our bodies get frozen and then the feeling gets frozen. Just like Diana's doing. She's moving. Say, I imagine you're on people's screen, Diana. Say, make a sound while you do it.
Yeah, it's like, woo. Yeah.
Yeah. And just what she did there for just a few seconds, energy and feelings are just emotion, energy and motion on the body starts to release. Then, Kevin, as the body creates a little space and a little freedom, then we would say to you or your group, let's do inquiry about the thought. And there's a particular process we won't go into today to do inquiry. So what you're doing is you're lessening the grip of the thought while releasing the energy of the body. But you always start with the body. Most people get scared. They have a scary thought. They don't tend to the body. The body freezes or fights or faints or does whatever the body does. We don't tend to it. We come back up in our head and we try to figure out the thought in order to try to minimize or manage our fear, and that doesn't work as well as letting the body go first. Body first, then the mind, and you use something, like cognitive emotive therapy, where we're going to really take a look at the thought. We like Byron Katie's work, the work by Byron Katie, that we're devotees of Katie. Come back up and deconstruct thought. So I'm working both ends of the human experience, such that after I do that for just a few minutes, this is not hours, this is a few minutes, I come back into presence and I'm available to the now moment to see how the now moment wants to be danced with. So Kevin, thank you.
Sure.
Because I think your question is probably one that countless others are asking, because they sit around with your friends on social media, you have cocktail hour at night, and you don't say, what's everybody scared of? But people start saying what they're scared of, and you get off after cocktail hour with your friends, you go, well, it was fun having a drink and laughing for a few minutes, but I'm more scared than I ever was because somebody else told me such and such. That's exacerbating the cognitive emotive loop and increasing our fear-based reactivity, not releasing it. Does that make sense, Kevin?
Totally. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe is there another question, Erica, that you feel like we ought to deal with? Otherwise, we want to lay in another principle of how to deal with uncertainty and how to deal with these times that we're in. So I'm checking with you, Erica.
Yeah, I have a question from Jeannie Stevens that I think is going to be valuable for lots of folks. So I'm going to unmute her and have her ask it.
I'm already smiling.
Hi, Jim and Diana and everybody else. It's good to see you. I have a question for you. So I'm all in on being self-aware and vulnerable and inviting that into our circle in the team. My question is around, what if my self-awareness and my vulnerability as a leader is, my fear is I have to let some of you go. Or my fear is I'm not sure you are the right one cut out to take us the next step. And it's wiser for the organization for me to release you. What would your wisdom be on me as a leader in the things that I out with my team? As I sit in the seat of leader, I get it. My self-awareness, my vulnerability begets their self-awareness and their vulnerability. But at what point do I not out? My fear is I might gotta fire some of you. So I would love your wisdom on that.
I'll go first. I have a thought, and then Diana, you go where you. So let's take, you actually brought up two ways you might let somebody go. The first is the economic circumstances of the reality of the world we're living in. The second is performance. Let's for a second differentiate those two.
Yeah, and I have both of those issues.
Yeah, good. So, and many of us have the first one right now. That's a common question. Good. So just think about this. You're sitting with your team. And you're having the thought, I don't know what the economic cash flow is going to be here. And the reality is I'm going to have to manage to a budget, and something's going to need to happen here. And one option is I'm going to need to let some people go. Let me ask you this. In your team, do you think you're the only one having that thought that a cash shortfall might lead to layoffs?
No.
I know you and I know your team. You got a bunch of smart people. They've done the calculus. So this is to my point, Jeannie. So they're sitting in a room, and I know you don't do this. Jeannie and I are friends. I know you don't do this, but some leaders would make believe in some jujitsu that, there isn't a shortfall in revenue. Now, at that point, again, I think people who are following you go, what's going on here? Either she doesn't see reality, which is scary as hell, or she sees reality and she doesn't trust us and herself enough to include us in the process. So she's over there doing something with all this, and she's going to eventually let us know. Again, I know your team, and they're practitioners of this stuff, so it's a little bit different. But with your team, I imagine if you said, hey, you guys, here's the reality. Here's what our, revenue stream is. Here's what's happening. You guys know this. Here's what our budget is. It's all transparent to you. The reality is that in a few weeks or a few days or a few months, we're not going to have enough money to keep everything going that we've got going. I'm aware of that, and so are you. And when I get aware of that, I feel scared and I feel sad, and I bet you do too. So let's just take a minute and be with that. Then from presence, living in the uncertainty without you as the leader needing to figure it out and answer it, you could invite them into presence and say, let's get curious about this. What are some of the possibilities? And like maybe the leader of New Zealand and all of her cabinet, you might say, we're just all going to take a 20% cut so we can all hang around, or the infinite possibilities. So again, in conscious leadership, doesn't it make sense that they already know? They want to know, do you know? They want to know, do you trust them enough to be with them, with your knowing and with your vulnerability? Do you trust you and them enough to be in this exploration together? In our world, that kind of process builds high trust. Mm-hmm. That's what most of us are facing. On the performance, I would deal with that a little bit differently, only because usually performance is not a team-wide issue, it's an individual issue. And we would talk about how to be with that one-on-one, in a team, things like that. It's dealt with, in my mind, the actions are a little different, but the philosophy is exactly the same. Hardly ever does an underperformer not have some inkling that either they're underperforming or, often more likely, they're being perceived as an underperformer. And to bring that into the light and have a candid, transparent, authentic conversation usually builds trust on the whole team, not maybe with or without that person, depending on how much denial they're in and how much defensiveness they're in, but how you handle it builds trust with the team. That makes sense, Jeannie?
Yeah, that's helpful.
Do you want to add anything to that from your experience?
I would say I have done the involving of naming what we all sense is going on and what is real. And I have a team of amazing people that want to solve the problem, that want to find solutions before there's a hard solution. I think I'm playing with how much are they involved before I also then have the hard responsibility. And I even hear myself calling it hard. So I have a story around the hard responsibility of when I have to inform them, here's a decision that I have now made.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Jeannie knows this, but all of you would know this. One of the things we teach to our leaders is, as a leader, one of your primary jobs is to clarify the decision rights. How's the decision going to get made? And in this case, it sounds like this might be ultimately the leader, you are going to make a decision. And you're going to do it with input, but yes, you're going to make a decision. One of the things that confuses and actually creates insecurity amongst teams is when they think they have a voice in a decision, when they really don't even have a voice, or they think they have a vote and they don't really have a vote. So again, I know you. So up front, you clarify, you say, at the end of the day, a decision will be made about this. And just so everybody knows, that's part of the role I play as leader. Part of my responsibility is to make the decision. And I'm going to do it with input from you and other relevant stakeholders and shareholders. But eventually I'll make the decision. So you have a voice. I want to hear from you. But at the end, you don't have a vote. Unless it is, then you could say you have a vote. We're going to do it by consensus. But you would clarify, is it consensus, majority vote? What is it you're doing? And that act of leadership helps settle people. And it helps instill trust because you let them know. And you can say to them, and quite frankly, I'm making that decision hard. Because I love you. The thought of saying to some of you, you're not going to be on the team, I scare myself and I sadden myself and I make it hard. That's what's true for me. And yet it's the role I signed up for. So I'm willing to stand in the role. But I'm standing there as a human whose heart's going to get broken. Great.
I also think people relax when they know what are the agreements that we're going to make about how I do communicate when I need to let people go? And so people can have some sense of, you're going to be hearing from me each week, and here's the best I'll be able to do to try not to create surprises. And so people can feel the clear agreement that helps people calm, of who's going to do what by when.
Yeah.
Around these
we practice clean agreements, and that would be a great way for me to lovingly, with self-awareness, say, here's my clean agreement on communication around what I know when and how often I will communicate it to you.
Yes.
I can see my team's fear subsiding even in the practice of saying it. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Jim, let's go on to our next process.
I just sent a text to you saying, why don't you talk a little bit about sorting the control files in the midst of uncertainty?
Okay. I was going to go for fact and story, but
Let's go for fact and story.
I'll do fact and story, and then you can do control. So one of the shift moves, and shift means shifting from reactivity to being more responsive, is being able to separate out what are the actual facts that are occurring and what are the stories that you're making up about those facts. And so both for you and for your team, one of the things we recommend is to take a piece of paper and write down what is the actual issue that you're all dealing with and what are the actual facts around that issue. And we define facts as, what does the camera record? So the camera might record, there's this much money budgeted for us for the next 2 months for payroll. That's what the camera records. Or the camera records, there are a number of us sitting here together on a team collaborating around a particular, whatever our product is. The camera it's simple. The facts are pretty simple. And then on that, after you define the facts, you're going to go over to this other side of the handout and write down all your stories you have about these facts. And make sure these are separate. And then you're going to go back and look again at this facts column and think to yourself, if I can't make up any stories, if the stories go away for a minute and I'm just looking at the facts, how am I? Is there reactivity over here? If you look and you've done your facts correctly, without any stories, without any measurements, without any adjectives, without any adverbs, and just write the facts down, you're going to find the facts are not causing the stress and reactivity. And you're going to recognize that it's all of my interpretation, which is subjective and arguable, but all of that is stories I make up about these facts, and that's what causes so much of my stress and my reactivity here. So being able to first separate those out, and then start to question, as Jim was saying, you could start to question some of these stories. And because when you're in reactivity, you want to be really bright. This is my story and I want to be really right about it. And would I be willing to question the story and open up my curiosity to see that there might be other ways of interpreting it that I'm not necessary, that are different from how I'm wanting to be right. So separating out fact and story is a very, very valuable shift move, especially in uncertainty. So it might be, might be valuable to play with somebody here. Has somebody got some issue going on that you feel like is really causing you a lot of stress or reactivity right now, that we could support you for a moment? Yeah, is that Leah? Leah, are you raising your hand? Leah Edwards. Erica, is there a way you can unmute her?
Yeah, working on it right now.
There you go,
All right,
Leah.
Leah, you're good to go.
I apologize. I actually, when I first signed up for this call, I thought it was just 1 hour, and then so I have another meeting.
Okay.
I didn't want to, this has been so wonderful. I didn't want to leave in a looking unappreciative way by just hanging up, but I have to. So sorry, I can't ask a question, but thank you very much. Great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Somebody else.
We're just looking for a volunteer to let Diana coach you so you can see how to use fact and story to
I
bring.
saw Sarah Schmidt raise her hand. Hi, Sarah. So we'll see if Erica can find you to unmute you.
On Sarah.
Okay, Sarah, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
What's the issue that you're dealing with currently that's you're finding stressful?
Oh, I have a friend that is really unresponsive. She's not keeping up her end of agreements. Yes.
Okay. And if we had a camera looking at this scene, what would the camera record?
Oh gosh. Her name's, oh gosh, I shouldn't say her name. My friend said that she would get me a document 2 days ago. She did not get me that document.
Okay. So the camera would record, woman said would get document, and the camera would record, woman did not give documents. So
Right.
Okay. Anything else the camera would record around this issue?
I think that's the only fact I have.
Okay. Now, if your mind can't make up any story about that, and you're just seeing, woman says will deliver document, woman doesn't deliver document.
Uh-huh.
If you can't make that mean anything, is there any upset over there in you?
No.
No. You just say, we just see woman said so, woman didn't follow through.
Mm-hmm.
That's all, right?
Yeah.
No, there's no problem. Now the problem will come because your mind's going to kick in and your mind is going to should on her.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the story is what? She should have.
She shouldn't have said because that was the second time she said she was going to give me that document. She should stick to her agreements.
She should stick to her agreements. And I'm right about that.
Yes, I'm right about that.
I'm right about that. And when I'm right, I upset myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you want to recognize her not keeping her agreement. That's not the cause of your upset. The cause of your upset is your righteousness that she should have.
Yeah.
Okay? So then the good news is you have the power to address your reactivity by seeing if you could loosen your righteousness. Now, I'm sure you still have a preference that she keep her agreement. Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. But if you could argue how the opposite could be at least as true, she shouldn't keep her agreement is as true as she should keep her agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Can you find a good argument that's not just intellectual, that your whole heart and body and mind can all go, okay, I can see how it could be true that she shouldn't keep her agreements?
No.
Good. Good. So then you're going to get with, I'd rather be right. I'd rather be right now. And I'd rather be in my reactivity, probably getting a little disconnected from her, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually committed to just being disconnected from her, wanting, I'd rather be right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. And that we just say, that makes sense. Because underneath all that, you're scared.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just scared.
Yeah.
So the first question we ask conscious leaders are, where are you? I'm below the line in reactivity, wanting to be right, defending my perspective.
Absolutely.
Second question of conscious leadership is, can I accept myself for being just where I am? I'm just scared.
Yeah.
I'm just scared, that's all.
Mhm.
And we say, does this threat of her not keeping her agreement feel most like a threat to your security, your control, or your approval?
Control.
Control. Yeah. I can't control her giving me the document.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm scared. My sense of control is being threatened. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And then now this is where Jim would say, that's not in your control whether she delivers the document or not. What is in your control is where you'd want to put your attention if you want to shift out of this. But for right now, you might want to just stay being right.
Yeah.
So you just notice, oh, I'm in reactivity and I allow myself to be scared in reactivity. That's okay. It's not about her, even
Yeah.
though everyone wants to make it about her.
I
It's
sure
about
do.
me. Conscious leadership recognizes I'm creating the reactivity. Okay.
Yeah.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for playing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just want to love on that scared one
Oh.
who's scared about not feeling like she's in control.
Mhm.
Just like, oh, makes so much sense. Take a breath to that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Such an act of empowerment, Sarah. You can feel how at first you're disempowered.
Yeah.
You're not the effect of what your friend is doing or not doing.
Mhm.
You feel that?
Yeah.
But then when you do this, you start to see, wait a minute, I'm actually empowered to check out what I believe, like she should keep her agreement. And I'm empowered, if I want to see if the opposite could be as true.
Mhm.
So by that little move, you're stepping into authorship of your experience to empowerment. Because at that point, you're actually, it's not what she's doing or not doing, it's you and how you're being. And because if it's about needing to change her so you can be happy, good luck.
Yeah.
And, in some cases, we can actually change the other person momentarily. And then we get happy and then we think, okay, that works. So now I'll just move through life trying to change everybody so I can be happy. But if you move it back over here, you go, wow, I'm actually the creator of my experience here. She's doing what she's doing. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Mhm.
But you're the creator of your experience. In that very act, there's empowerment.
Mhm.
Thank you for letting us explore with you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Diana, do you want me to cover the files? Okay. So we'll cover one more piece, then we'll open the floor for questions or comments or anything you want to share. So we talked about, in the midst of uncertainty, how to lead. And we did that whole thing on feel your feelings, welcome your feelings, flow your feelings, come back into presence, hold space for others to feel their feelings, separate out thinking from feeling, feel it in your body, come back to deconstructing the thought, a little bit of what Sarah was just doing. Great. And then Diana introduced us, in the midst of uncertainty, differentiate facts from stories, be ruthless about this, and see that you're the author of your stories, and get curious about, is there another story that could be as true as your story? So those are two moves: emotional intelligence, differentiate fact from story. And then the third move is separate out what's under your control and not under your control. So I learned this first from Gay Hendricks, our mentor. And the idea is that really present leaders reliably place their attention on things that are under their control, and they take their attention off of things not under their control. So Sarah was so great. She illustrated for us whether or not her friend keeps her agreement, not under Sarah's control. What Sarah believes about her friend not keeping her agreement, that's under Sarah's control. By the way, it's also under Sarah's control to send her friend an email. and say, hey, I noticed you made an agreement to get me this and you didn't get it to me. I feel sad and angry. And I want to tell you that what I want is for you to keep your agreements with me. That's under her control. How her friend responds to that email, not under Sarah's control. The friend might go, thank you very much, Sarah. I've kind of been sleepwalking through life and blowing off a ton of my agreements. Your loving pressure is inviting me to get back into integrity. Or the person might say, go mind your own damn business or whatever. You don't know. Whatever the other person does, not under your control. So if we come back to the content of COVID-19, this is a really important place to sort the files. What's under your control, what isn't under your control. Here's one I like to start with. Is it under your control whether or not you get a virus? Is it under your control? Everybody tune into this. And it's not, there's no middle zone. You either can absolutely control it or you can't. Now, is it under your control whether you wash your hands? Is it under your control whether you practice physical distance? Is it under, there's a whole lot of things that are under your control. But one of the things that creates anxiety in people is they think, if I do everything that's under my control, then I can guarantee, and by the way, here's the big thing they're trying to guarantee, that I and no one I love will die. That's the big thing. If you boil it all down, isn't that it? So if I do all these things, I'm going to control whether people die, me and others. Well, that's been what we have, as a humanity, have been trying to do for a long time. The question is it under your control whether you die? I think it's pretty obvious we're all going to die, unless maybe you're one of the people who believes that technology is going to meet and we won't die. Great. But most of us think we're going to die. It's not under your control whether you're going to die. You're going to die. Is it under your control how and when you're going to die? No. And that's why there's so much uncertainty around a virus like this, because it reminds us how totally out of control we are about something that is so important to us. Now we're kind of in the deep end of the ocean here, right, gang? Is it under your control whether you die? No. Is it under control your how and when you die? No. You could die of a brain aneurysm right now. You could die of getting another virus that nobody's even paying attention to, that came from all the cleaning products that you're using to sanitize your house. Who knows? Is it under your control whether or not in this now moment you put on music and dance? Is it under your control whether or not you read poetry? Is it under your control whether you make love to your beloved? Is it under your control? In other words, happy people, present people, place their attention on what's under their control, and they stay devoted to making choices.
Jim, one of the places I see a lot of leaders wanting to control is this, as the upset, the stress of their employees. That's a big one. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, let's say, just ask the question, is whether or not your team members are upset, angry, scared, do they like you? Do they trust you? Whether or not people in your world love you, appreciate you, how other people feel, is that under your control or not under your control? By the way, this is where some of you are going to want to say, well, I can influence it. Like if I give everybody on my team an X amount of dollar bonus, they're going to be happy. But check, is that absolutely true? It's actually not. You could give everybody on your team a bonus and somebody on the team is going to go, you should have given this to us sooner. You should have given us more of a bonus. Why did you give us all the same bonus? Because I work harder than... You cannot control other people's feelings. And once you really get that, you start to experience liberation. Because in our partnership with Diana and Erica and Lainey, we're pretty clear. I'm incredibly clear that I do not control Diana's feelings. She is responsible for her feelings. And by the way, in a really cool partnership, she tells me that. She says, Jim, you're not responsible for my feelings. I'll feel what I feel. I'm responsible for whether I'm authentic. I'm responsible for whether or not I reveal myself. I'm responsible for whether I keep my agreements. She's responsible for her feelings. She's empowered over there. I'm empowered over here. That creates an incredibly powerful dance. If I sit around and worry about how Diana's feeling and I place my attention over there, I'm going to go under stress and out of presence. Right?
Another thing I see, a lot of leaders are feeling anxious, like because they feel like it's their job to try to keep people engaged, you know, because everybody's now virtual. And how do I keep everybody engaged in the work? And how do I make sure, that we're all in high spirits? And I see how many leaders are trying to control all that.
That's a formula for frustration if you think you're responsible for other people's engagement. You're responsible for your own engagement. By the way, if you think other people aren't engaged, before you go fiddling around over there, check out your own level of engagement. Engagement tends to be a little bit contagious. You can't control it. But if you're fully engaged, especially with people that you think are not fully engaged, see what happens to the engagement index. So we say to leaders all the time, if you're having to be responsible for the engagement level of your team members, you're not practicing conscious leadership and you might have the wrong members on your team. Again, Lainey has been with us for years. I never once think, and she's director of all of our operations. She joined Diana and I a while ago. I never once think it's my job to keep Lainey engaged. I'm responsible as part of the team to make sure that Lainey is in her zone of genius, that she's doing a job that lights her up. Being lit up is her responsibility, but I want to be in constant dialogue with her. But I would never think it's my job to keep her engaged. I would think it'd be great if she said, hey, my engagement level's dropping. Great, let's talk about that. How are you showing up such that your level of engagement is dropping? What do you need to be doing, and what do you need from us to create a different experience? That's a totally different conversation.
Let's open up some questions.
Yeah, Rebecca Parrott, I hope I'm saying your name right, or forgive me if I'm not saying your name correctly, asks, but can you provide the venue for engagement, which I think is where what you were hinting at, Jim, is where's the responsibility on both sides. And we can unmute Rebecca if she wants to add to that.
Well, yeah, as a team member, I'm responsible for co-creating a context that's conducive to engagement. So I get to take my 100% responsibility. Like at CLG, we really create a context where people get to live and work in their zone of genius. We all collectively do that. So I get to take my 100%, Diana, Erica, Lainey, everybody gets to take their 100%. So it's not that I'm not in the dance with somebody, but I'm not taking more than my 100% responsibility, believing that somebody else's happiness is my responsibility. We're talking about a place where everybody takes their 100% responsibility.
So Rebecca, you're unmuted. Does that address your question?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. So we have another question from Sheetal Shah, who says the leader has to care. Not caring about others' feelings, isn't that part of the problem? So it's just some room for nuance here around the difference between caring and compassion and connecting versus actually taking responsibility for controlling.
Yeah. So for example, what's in my control is to ask questions like, how's everybody doing? How is your engagement? So I get to care about you and ask questions that then ideally support you in revealing yourself. And then I as perhaps your boss, then can help support you in, like Jim said, okay, how are you creating the lack of engagement? What is the way you're being, and how can I support you in creating a change over there in you that helps open up engagement? So I can be with you as a coach, as a mentor, to ask thoughtful questions of you to help you become empowered.
Any other questions? Just raise your hand or put it in the chat. We want to make sure you're getting what you want out of this experience, or just somebody who wants to share something. We've got about 9 minutes left or so. There's a raised hand. Katie? Erica, can you find Katie?
Yes.
Hi there.
Yeah, and
Sorry if my Wi-Fi isn't great. I have a little bit of a two-part question. The first is about creating space and creating time in an exponentially busy work environment to address the feelings and allow my team members to share. And the second is, I feel like so far we've done a good job sharing what we feel, but then I often feel like my response is weak. I often try to fix the feeling. Like someone will say, I'm really scared. I'm a physician, so they'll say, I'm really scared about, COVID virus coming through the air and into my house. And then I start to teach and try to fix their fear. And I'm not sure that that's the right response, rather than just allowing them to hold space to feel it. So it's the step two, once they share with me, like, what do I do with that information?
I'll take the second part, and Diana, maybe you can take the first part around creating space and time. In our world, you actually already know because you said it. So I'm just going to remind you of what you already know. Let's say you role play one of those people and I'll be you. So just give me a sentence.
Okay. So I'm going to be my medical assistant, who is really worried about her parents, who are elderly, and her dad is in her estimation being really obstinate about wanting to go on a regular basis to Costco, and she wants.
You be her.
Okay, Dr. Fuchs, my dad went to Costco yesterday. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. Should I quarantine him? I'm not sure.
And what's this person's first initial? Your medical assistant?
Oh, no, my Wi-Fi. My medical assistant, yeah.
Okay, great. Here's what I'd say. God, sounds like you're really freaking out about your dad, and he's not staying quarantined. And I imagine you're really scared. I know you love your dad. Is that right? Is that what's going on for you?
I do. I really love him, and he just won't listen to me, and I don't know how to make him listen.
It's so frustrating when people we love won't listen to us. I get it. I really do. So you're frustrated?
Yes, right? Really frustrated. I'm really frustrated, and I'm scared because he's sick. He's got heart disease, and he's not washing his hands. He gets really mad when anybody tells him to.
Again, I get you. You're scared and you're frustrated. He's not doing what you know would be best for him to do. I get you. You make sense to me. Now, I could go even further, but then I might say, is there any support you would like from me around this?
I want you to call him and yell at him.
No. And, at that point, I might say, it depends on how well I know you or something like that. I might say, hey, if that would be fun for you and for him, let's get him on the phone and I'll put on my doctor hat and I'll tell him what he should be doing. You could do that from being playful. If you do that to really try to control him or fix her, it probably won't go very well. but the deal is you're saying to her, you make sense to me. So you validate, you empathize, you open your heart. She's not crazy. She makes sense. And then instead of saying, let me tell you about airborne virus, the actual chance of him getting airborne virus is like infantile. Now you've crossed over, you're trying to fix her. Instead, from presence, you can say, is there any support you want? And then if it's support you have to give, then you give support. But when you say to her, is there any support you want? You're empowering her to see what she needs without you trying to tell her what she needs.
Right.
So empathize, validate, and then ask, is there any support you'd like from me? Is that
Really
help?
helpful? Really helpful. And then that first part of my question is the time component, because when I ask that third part of the question, is there anything that I can do to help? The answer is often, yes, please. And then, there's not enough hours in the day.
Yes. So again, you might say things like, we can't control your dad, but what we can control is your sphere, and by helping presence it and move it through the body. And one of the questions, this is a great question, because some people are like, hey, we have a lot to do. Putting attention on context right now, it can, for some people, seem like not a good use of our time when we have so many other things going on. And that may be true. But our experience is that when you put attention on context for some period of time, the content often can get processed a lot quicker. People are then more available for creative thinking. Innovative ideas pop in. People feel there's more energy, because all of that they've been contracting around is making them tired, which makes it difficult to do their jobs. So people get more energy and likely are able to create more when context is addressed. So every leader has to decide for themselves what that balance looks like based on the conditions that are happening right now. But most people will bias toward content and bias toward, this is what's going to get us to move more quickly. And our direct experience is that when leaders address context, things can go much faster in ways you cannot have imagined. And certainly,
Really helpful.
Certainly with a lot less stress. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do right now, is people are dealing with so many different dynamics going on all at once.
Okay, a couple of wrap-up thoughts.
Yes.
Two things, logistics, make sure I say this right, Diana. Number one, this has been recorded, and we're going to share out this recording to these people so you can look back over it and learn from it, revisit it. And then the second piece is, we really do want to support you. So we're going to send a survey out to you. It's a short survey, and we just like you to answer a couple of questions and see, are there other ways we can be supportive of you? We've got some ideas, and you would say, yes, this would help, this wouldn't, try this. So we really want to have you give us feedback for how we can support you. And Erica just said it's actually in the chat right now, the link to it. So if you look over there, you can just click on it. And that's, we believe in like energy reciprocating. So like our energy has come toward you in this, yours has come back toward us. We'd love it if you sent us the energy of your feedback, and then we can come back with our energy toward you so we can kind of keep co-creating.
Yeah, because we're interested in innovating right now in the midst of all this. And so your responses to what you're genuinely interested in will help us know how to give you what you most need and want moving forward here.
Okay, you beautiful beings, that's 30 minutes past the hour, wherever you are on the planet.
One more thing I want to say is we're going to put you on our newsletter list. We send out a newsletter twice a month. We're going to just assume you want it because you just want all this great support. But if you don't, you can easily take yourself off the list. But I want to communicate that directly so we're in integrity with letting you know that we're going to include you. And we'll keep announcing through the newsletter all of our new offerings.
Diana, fun to hang out with you.
Yeah, so fun.
Erica and Lainey, thank you for holding our worlds together.
Yeah, thank you for all of that, making this easy.
And all of you, be well.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye all. Thank you so much for being with us.